Hello everyone, welcome to my photography Q&A. I'm going to answer some of your questions that have popped up in the comment sections on my YouTube videos. So let's just get straight into it. Richard Black says, with the 5D Classic, when you talk about how the files look, are you referring to the JPEGs or the RAW files? I'm always talking about RAW files unless I say JPEGs. I'm always talking about RAW files. But look, the reason I picked up this question was because of the point that I want to make about it. If you like the JPEGs that come out of a camera, I'll tell you the camera that I really like the JPEGs from is the 5D Mark II. They're really nice, and I'm going to do something on that. I'm going to do a shoot with the 5D Mark II where it's just the JPEGs from the camera, but you don't need to now do the JPEG thing. But if you want to do that, if you like what you get from the JPEGs and you're happy to, just do it. All this kind of professional photographers only shoot RAW. This is just not true. As I know it's not true. And this thing that you have to shoot RAW so you get all of the information. Don't let the camera decide for you. Do whatever you like. If you like what you're getting, carry on. Don't let people influence you too strongly. At all, even. Make your own decisions, be your own person. You don't have to justify anything that you do to anyone. All you need to do is be happy with the results that you're getting. And if someone says to you, you can't shoot JPEG, you have to shoot in RAW. No, that's you. Don't let other people dictate to you based on their belief system what you have to do and what you should do. Use your brain. Make up your own mind, say I like the results that I'm getting with whatever I'm doing, and be yourself. This is one of the things I want to try to bring into this kind of group that is my subscribers on YouTube, I guess, is that whilst I tell you the things that I like, I want to encourage you that if, let's say that I did a meetup one day, I would love it if people didn't copy the cameras that I use, if they just bring the things that they like and shoot the way that they want to. I'd love to see cameras from every description. Someone shooting on film, all different brands of like digital and things. If anyone wants the latest gear, the latest and greatest, all the way down to an iPhone or whatever they want in between. I would love to see everyone turning up with different gear like that, shooting however they want with whatever lenses they want, and being present for this experience of doing photography. When I list these cameras out to you and how I feel about them, you need to understand that this is how I feel. And what I want to encourage all of you to do is find the things that you like. Because if I turn around and say, look, there's one camera, I can give you a perfect example. I don't like the files that come out of the D810. I just don't like them. It's a brilliant camera. I just don't like what comes out of it that much. I know photographers that use the D810 and I like their work, but when I've used it, I'm just like, I just feel like I'm fighting against it. So that's not good for me. That's not a good choice for me. But I would, if I did that photo walk, like I said, I wouldn't want someone who owns a D810, oh, I can't go with D810, who doesn't like a D810. No, be you, be yourself. Come along, join in, be the person that brings that camera along because you like it. I'm not going to go, oh, D810. Do you know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about, being inclusive. I want to try to nurture a little community or a mindset of people that think for themselves and do the things the way they want to do them. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Do it your way. That's what I want to encourage everyone to do, is to be true to yourself and be yourself. Not be, even when I'm telling you these things, don't be so heavily influenced. Think for yourselves and make your own minds up about how you want to do things. I know that's a tangent from the question, but when I read the question, this is what went through my mind. That's why I wanted to answer it, because it triggers that in me. When you guys ask me certain questions, I can feel people constantly, because the number of questions I get, that people want guidance, they want to make sure they make the right decision. It's like, it's okay to try something out and say, no, that's not for me, and then switch and then try something else out until you find the reason I'm able to review so many of these cameras for you, these older cameras, is because this is what happened to me. I was like, oh, I want to try that out. I want to see what it's like. And you switch and you change and you sort of flip-flop backwards and forwards, trying things out. And that's an enjoyable experience in itself. I like going through that process, and I've enjoyed going through it. And I've kept my base system. So most of my work, especially my wedding photography, the bulk of it was shot on a D600. So I know that camera exceedingly well. But you know, and I try out other cameras, and sometimes I think, oh, I prefer like the 6D. I'm like, oh, I prefer the 6D for portraits though when I'm in control. So I'll have that with a couple of lenses. That's how I do things. And then something else comes along, and like D810, I'll try it out, I'll buy it and try it. Like, no, I'll keep back to my Z600. That's how I kind of work. So like even now, I'm trying out the Sony A7R5, and I'm making up my mind on it. I'm thinking, is that something that could take over as a work camera? Is it maybe? And then I'll try something else out. And rather than this kind of, yeah, I'm going to buy this, and then everyone will know that I bought this camera and I'm the best, and you know, all this kind of rubbish, and I will attach all of my identity as a photographer to this camera. These are just things that we use, and we think like, yeah, I like this one, this is good, this suits me. I tried that one out, but it's just, you know, it's not for me. But then you don't sort of, what I see everyone doing on YouTube is go, you bought that, it's rubbish, because they didn't like it. That doesn't mean it's not good for somebody else, because all the people that always do that have never got any work, never see their portfolio, you know, never see their portfolio. And I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like, if you go up to someone and tell them you think their camera's rubbish, first, like, that reflects more on you than it does on them. And second thing is like, where's your work? You don't know, that guy might smoke you, or girl, you know, they might absolutely smoke you. And you're just like, oh yeah, the camera, your camera, like your work, where's your work? That's the question. On one of my landscape photography videos, how do you darken the camera so quickly? Ninja skills, my friend, ninja skills. 2-bar PSI. That took me a moment because I was like reading it as 2-barpsy, and I was, what does that mean? Is that like a type of burp or something? No, but it's 2-bar PSI, isn't it? That's okay, I get it. And you comment a lot on my stuff, so I should have realised that by now. Can you recommend either the 5D Mark II or 5D Mark IV for photography use only, mainly portraits, landscapes, and cars? Are the cars moving or not? Here's what I'd say. I would go for the 5D Mark II because the colour's nicer on it, even though it's worse in every other way. Okay, so right, here's the thing. If I took pictures on the 5D Mark IV and the 5D Mark II, and I did my very best with them, and I presented you those pictures afterwards, stuck them in front of you and asked them to put them into piles of which ones you prefer, I would bet a little bit of money, so I don't like betting, but just a tiny bit, that you would put a vast majority of the 5D Mark II pictures into the pile that you like, because I know those pictures are going to look better, despite the Canon 5D Mark IV being better at everything else. It's just that the 5D Mark II just somehow looks better. And the last question actually came via an email. And the question was about AI, because everyone's talking about this at the moment. Do I think that AI is going to replace photographers and photography? So I've been thinking about this a little bit, because I've seen people putting up videos about it as well. And do you know what? I thought about this, and I thought, right, when I look and see what AI is doing, it's not very good at doing consistent things. It can't like take a scene and replicate it very well several times over. But I think that will come in time. So all of the things that are unique, like a wedding, I think that AI is virtually going to be useless for it. It will have big benefits in the editing process of speeding up the edit. It's already doing that now, really. You see people now selling AI generated art. So I'm going to mention two things that I think it's going to change. And one I think will be a benefit for photographers, and the other one I think will be negative. I think in commercial photography, I think a lot of commercial photographers will probably lose their jobs in time. Not yet, because this stuff is not good enough yet. But I think in time they will, because the problem for commercial work, and I do commercial work myself, but the problem for commercial work is most of it requires you to repeat a look that you can do. And there will come a point where you can just get AI to do that and replicate it. And I think where commercial photographers fall down is that they think that they're really artistic and they've got an artistic vision, but what they're producing is mostly just generic nonsense. And I'm afraid that's the reality of it. It's just like this. If you look at the adverts that are out, it's like that works as an advert, and that's why you're getting paid for it. But in terms of creativity and mindset, it's pretty low down. In terms of like, you're getting paid because you can make that look, but the creativity level in a lot of the adverts is not that high. It works because of the design idea behind it. And once you can feed those design ideas into an AI algorithm, if you like, and give it a good description, and then say we need to see 20 variations, you pick the one you like, then you say, right, I want it to, have it in this scene, that scene, that scene, and you can do it. It's going to be very quick for companies to do things in-house. I think that's where it's going to go. I just can't see that there's going to be, I'm not saying all commercial photography will go, but what I'm saying is I don't think with the commercial photographers that I know, I don't think they understand how creatively limited they are, but because their stuff's getting paid for, and commercial can pay quite well, they think that means they're a good photographer and that they're creative. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm afraid. It doesn't really work like that, because a lot of the photography is a good advert, and that's why it's getting paid for. That doesn't mean it's good photography. That makes sense, because outside of selling the product that's in the picture or the service, that's not going to be of interest to anyone else. And so it's advertising photography like that, commercial photography is like something that influences you to buy something. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's good photography. I would give you analogies to things that are out there that people buy, like, for instance, newspapers. There's a lot of bad newspapers, and regardless of any political beliefs, there's a lot of bad newspapers out there, and people still buy them in large numbers because it appeals to them, but it doesn't mean that what's written in them is any good. Same thing with like fast food places. There's lots of them everywhere, and they can repeat that burger, if you like, across the world, and people buy loads of it, and it's a good business for them, but it doesn't mean it's a good product. See what I'm saying? So I think that for commercial photography, it could be days are numbered for a lot of people, because once they can do this in-house and generate adverts faster, I think they'll be away with that and they'll want to do that. But I might be wrong. I don't know. Who knows? But the flip side, I think where things are going to get interesting is that trying to cast my mind back to Blade Runner, when there's no pets left. Everything's synthetic. Is that right? And imagine you have a real insect versus a synthetic one. Suddenly someone, let's say the vast majority of the planet's animals are all synthetic. They're robots, essentially, that are completely lifelike. But then someone finds an animal somewhere that's still alive, that's real. That thing's worth a fortune because it's real. It's not synthetic. And my prediction is that arts will go in the same direction. I think what you'll see is that the artistic side of photography, for instance, in landscape photography, there will be a need and a desire, and the same thing for portraits as well, to people to be able to say this is a real person, not an AI generated one. But in the artistic side of things, let's say street photography, landscape, and so on, the fact that this is real life depicted. I'm not talking about documentary. It can still be stylized and stuff, but the fact that it's not generated by a computer will make things worth more. So I think it will go the opposite direction to what a lot of people are thinking, is that they will want to know who the artist is and know that this is an authentic picture made by a human being. We might get to the point where AI is really good at replicating it, and that doesn't even matter either, I don't think, because let's say you put in all the work of Cartier-Bresson into an AI algorithm, and then it generates more work that looks just like what Cartier-Bresson would shoot, but it isn't actually his. Those pictures aren't going to be worth as much as the actual pictures that Cartier-Bresson took, because they're generated by an algorithm and not by a human. And I think that the thing that's going to change is we're going to start to see some form of authenticity attached to work. And that might be in the form of some sort of digital footprint that is attached to files where we can see that this come from a real person. But it may be, in the meantime, before that becomes advanced enough or is even a thing, and I just made that up, but that would be the way I think it would go. There will be a time period where people will want to see some evidence of the behind the scenes. For instance, if you sell landscape photos, there will be a time, I think, where having some video footage of you being there and taking the picture will give the authenticity to it, because I don't think that many people want to pay much money for something that's been generated by a computer versus the story of a photographer. You know, let's say they go hiking for 5 days, camp out somewhere, waiting for that perfect moment, and they capture it and they produce this print, and then they sell a limited number of prints from it. That's going to be worth so much more than the AI generated copies of that print or variations that it will make afterwards. And the reason is, it's not that the AI versions aren't going to be just as good. It's just that we as humans aren't going to value it. We're not going to see the value in that, and we won't want it. And because we won't want it, it's not going to be the thing. It's like if you have, let me give you an example. If you have 2 books and one of them's a first edition signed by the author, that one is going to be worth way more than print run 5,000 whatever not signed. That's the difference. And because people will want to have an original, they will want to have like the equivalent of an original, and that's what it's going to boil down to. So I think it's actually going to enhance in time. I think it will enhance the value of stuff that we create. I don't think photography is going anywhere. It's just simply because people don't want AI to take over in that way. Therefore, it won't do it, because people won't place value on AI created stuff. And that is where the buck stops. If people don't place value on AI created work, then you're not going to see people wanting to pay for it. And I think that that's where I think commercial photography is in danger, is because people don't value that work outside of its ability to sell the product. And because of that, that's why I think AI is a real danger to commercial photographers. I hope that makes sense. If you liked that and you enjoyed it, consider buying me a coffee in the link in the description down below. Every time someone buys me a coffee, it is really much appreciated, and it helps support the channel, keep things like this going. If you're new here, consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it, and drop me a comment down below. I will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.